Hi everybody and welcome to week 20 overview video. This week is exciting. We are finishing our geometric shape project. So I'm going to go ahead and go to our next thing. So we're in our week 19 through January 19 through 22 folder. You're in the overview video right now. Our first assignment this week is to actually submit our final and add color to it. There's a lot of information in here because I want to make sure you know how you're being graded. And you know what you need to do and what I'm asking you to do. So the chunk is to review the slides and criteria. We'll do that together. And then the chew is to add color and create a final geometric shape project and upload it here. I did retype the criteria here that I highlighted in the slideshow if you need a quick reference. There's also a rubric here so you know how you're getting graded. But let's go over this together. I'm going to go ahead and make this larger screen. So this is our geometric shape project. We did this last week, but I'm just going to quickly review. Our goal in our challenge is basically to create a design using 1 to 3 geometric shapes. You can do that by creating something abstract. You can create something that represents something. So maybe like an animal and object you can create on paper or on Autodesk. Here's some examples of abstract. And here's some examples of representational. However, those were just examples for our sketches. So these were your steps last week. You were supposed to upload your sketch without color. And now this whole second part of the slideshow is about adding color and the final criteria. So remember we talked about analogous color schemes back when we reviewed color and shape together. And analogous is basically a group of 3 colors next to each other on the color wheel. So that could be like this one where you have yellow and then you have the yellow green and the yellow orange. So you have all the yellows together. Or it can be kind of centered, instead of centered in a primary color, it could be centered in a secondary color, like yellow-orange, and then you have the yellow and the orange. So it's a group of 3. And as you can see, this example has all 3. So if you had some ideas of colors you wanted to use, just make sure you're picking one of these. However, what if you want to add more colors? Well, you can also add the complements to your analogous colors as well. So complements are the colors across from each other on the color wheel. So if you have an analogous color scheme, like let's say I chose this yellow one because I really wanted some green and I wanted a little orange in my color scheme, then the opposite colors, which are the complements, would be this one, and this would be the violet. So remember, yellow is across from violet or purple, and so then you'd get the ones on each side too. So I put these pairings together to make it just that much easier for you. I think the color scheme I'm going to use is this yellow-green one because I really want to use red and I want just a hint of green in my design too. And I'll talk more about that and show you my sketch example. Another thing you need to do is if you had a sketch like one of those animals or maybe an object, make sure you add a background to create balance, even if it's just plain shapes. And maybe you're adding another shape into the equation just to use up the space of your paper like those. Also, I want to encourage you to add creative choices like texture, pattern, different values. This example down here is called hatching. That's a technique we use in drawing to create shading. And it's a really effective way to add color and texture. The grading criteria. I'm grading you after your design. Did the student use the whole space of the paper and created balance and harmony in their design? Does your design have balance as far as where things are placed? Color, did you use analogous color schemes and maybe you included complementary as well? Did you use 1 to 3 geometric shapes? Maybe you just used one shape, maybe you used 10. We're looking for 1 to 3. Maybe you didn't use shapes that were geometric. Maybe all of yours were organic, so then we might need improvement. But make sure you're using geometric shapes. And then you're also graded off of the project pathway specifics. So if you did the paper option, did you use an object to trace to make consistent shapes? Or did you maybe you were lacking a little bit because you were freehanding them and you weren't tracing something. Or if you were doing the digital option, maybe your digital option was too simple and didn't have enough detail. And because I know that you did it digitally, I know that it didn't take you very long. So make sure you're looking at those pathway specifics. And you can reference the video from last week too to hear more about the digital or paper option. And then once you're done with that, here's the artist statement. This is a PDF, but I just screenshotted it so it could be in the slideshow as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make my screen smaller. So my example from last week was this. And remember, if you added color on accident, you might have to go back and make some changes. Notice I didn't add color yet. So like I said, this was kind of a flower idea. I want the center of my flower to be yellow, and I wanted my leaves to be kind of red. So that's why I chose the color scheme with the reds, and then the complement of red is green. So if I'm using red, the one aside from that would be red violet and red orange. So your kit should have the intermediate colors in it if you received a colored pencil kit. If you're doing it on digital, just make sure you're comfortable with the color wheel and know what colors you're picking. So right now I have a red orange, a red, and I can find my red violet. So once I have those three, I can use these three however I want to. So when I'm coloring, if I want to add just a little bit more, instead of just coloring it plain, I'm going to actually kind of blend these three colors together on the petals of my flowers so that it kind of creates something that looks a little more 3D and gives it a little more depth. So I'm going to go ahead and press really, really hard at first and then get lighter as I go. And then I'm going to add my darker color next and kind of blend that in with that other color that I just used. So get creative on this. You can use pattern, you can use texture, but the idea is to not exactly just have them be solid colors. And if you're doing it digital like this too, you can also do this digitally. You could use like the watercolor tool on Autodesk. You could use hatching just to create something a little more exciting to look at rather than just a plain filled in color. So instead of just doing one plain leaf or petal, I kind of faded it in here. So keep in mind when you color it, try to add some creative touches and choices and make it your own. So once you have this all colored, and that took me not very long, but if I did this to the whole thing, that's probably going to take me more than a few hours. So make sure if you're doing this digitally, you're also taking a couple hours to complete this project. The last thing is to do your artist statement. As always, it's really important to reflect, and also as a teacher it helps me grade, because if I look at your design or your project and I have some questions about it, usually if you turn in an artist statement, I actually go back and read that, and I read about your art and what you were thinking, and sometimes that helps influence how I grade your design. So keep in mind you want to make sure you do both of these, and if you can do them like around the same time, that's always better. So if you turned in, you'd want to turn them in the same week because that helps me grade. Both these things are due Sunday next week. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm here to help you if you need to meet up during office hours. And if you were in Monday's class because we didn't have school, feel free to jump into any of my Google Meets after the first 20 minutes. I'm usually just sitting in there with a couple students, and that's a really good time to find me and ask questions if you have any questions. Have a great week.